Welcome to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Amish Phil, but he's drinking, so apparently he must have brewed his own. I can't make it to that.
It's Friday night, Robbie.
What?
It's Friday night in the UK.
Okay, it's Saturday day here.
It's not.
Yeah, it is. Time zones
Why?
don't work the way you think they work.
What bloody time zone? I thought you were on the East Coast.
I am. You want to
so
give
it's
away my
Friday.
exact P.O. box so any stalker out there follows me?
It's Friday, Robbie.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, we're podcasting as time travel right now. We don't know when this is
Oh,
going to
well,
be released.
wow. God, sorry. Did I break the third wall, the fourth wall there?
Fourth wall.
Fucking hell.
The person, it's funny. Most of our chats have always consumed around time zones. Mostly they started with my favorite interest of the building that I can never get right. And I think I might get it right this time. And that is, nope, I blanked on it. The one with all the rocks in a circle. Stonehenge. Yeah.
That is a stone circle.
That is a stone. Why? Why is it there? Why are the pyramids there? We don't know.
Oh, the UK is full of stone circles. They're absolutely everywhere. Yeah, well, it seems to be. Yeah, it's they're absolutely everywhere. Whenever I go on holiday or vacation, as you say, I usually there's a website you can go to, and it'll tell you where it's like got a map of the UK, and it'll say where all the stone circles, monoliths, dolmens, where they all are on the map. And some of them are just like in farmers' fields. You just sort of put a GPS in, and then you go down a country road and then pull over and jump out your car, and you can see it in the field, like these three huge stones made into like a little old, like, I don't know how you describe a dolmen. It's like it doesn't look like much because they're not like really nicely dressed stones. They're very rough, odd shapes, and like two there and then one across the top.
Oh, God forbid that the stones are to your liking. I'm so sorry. The question I have to ask is, do those farmers, like, how do they feel? Like people just randomly jumping out of their car in the middle of the highway and just walking through their field of maize and just walking up to their stone rocks and like rubbing their hands on it, thinking they can consume power of the old knowledge or something like that. Like it was something with Pokestops down here when Pokemon Go was huge. There was just random people fucking jumping out of their cars and running to Pokestops. I got to catch a Charmander or something like that. I'm like, if you own a business, imagine you own I got to think of something people. Oh, a toy furniture business. And you live in a city of adults. So there's no one buying your toy furniture. You think all these kids are now showing up, or all these people are showing up playing Pokemon Go. You're like, oh my God, honey, we're about to close shop. We're about to go bankrupt. Now we got business. And they're just there using a Pokestop. I would be so pissed.
Yeah, wasn't there some controversy over that Pokemon game? Weren't people like luring kids into forests and shit, like putting what do you call it, like a dummy Pokemon down?
Well, no, they just would.
Someone thinks they're getting this like cool Charizard, and it's really some creep there.
There was just a bad part where there were Pokestops littered in random spots where people would get mugged because it would be like in an alleyway, and that was the issue. Uber had the same thing. You just put a disclaimer on it, like, hey, if this is if you're not with a friend, a buddy, we say, probably don't walk down that dark alley. You're probably going to come across some things. I just wish, like, dude, imagine we could revamp the game to where every Pokestop was a drug deal. So you have people walking into drug deal. That would steer kids off drug. Actually, you probably would pick up some drug people. That was what it would do.
Yeah, that makes more sense now. I took it to the next sort of level of creepiness. But no, these Pokemon were just put in places where people would be isolated. And so you get these little kids with $1,000 or £1,000 iPhones or Samsungs, whatever, going to some motorway underpass to collect a Pokemon and then getting robbed.
Do you have that advertisement that plays that talks about some type of government bill where apparently kids don't need a parent's authorization to buy things online?
No, that's the new one on me.
There was some type of thing advertisement I keep seeing was like, you need to talk about the C-13 bill. And it's like, what's this? This allows kids to make purchases through their phone when and it's an issue when a kid wants to buy a gem pack for $3.99. Okay, it's $3.99, but imagine it's $250 bill that comes in the mail because your kid's buying a bunch of random stuff on there.
Yeah, I need the new skin for Fortnite. I know someone who you're not really into soccer over there, but have you heard of FIFA?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the FIFA games are huge over here. FIFA's like the governing body of foot soccer in the world.
Sorry.
What?
You guys are all interested in FIFA? If that's the biggest excitement you have over there, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm not. I couldn't care less. But young kids like high school age boys, they love playing FIFA. And this is one of these games with all these in-game purchases. And some kid had run up like £1,000 on his dad's credit card on FIFA, and the dad got his money back. He called the credit card company or whatever, and they figured it out. So I don't know what the legal thing is with that here. I guess because surely you have to be, most of these things, won't they say like you have to be 16 years or older or 18 years or older to do the purchase?
Well, that's what the bill does, is the bill takes that away. Like what I didn't know, when people talk about censorship, I think we as content creators, me and you both probably have an issue with censorship.
Yeah.
People say like, well, you don't want bad things being said
particularly
online.
them tube.
Yeah. Well, the issue starts to become is they don't make it a clear justification on what they're censoring. Like they leave it, they leave the door open. So it's like they can just use that to choose what they want to censor or not. I can have like Norman, for instance, we were talking about Norman Fenton. He was on my show recently, great guy. He posts statistics about COVID and stuff. But if I talk about it with him on here, I can't post it because it's not the same thing, even though we could be talking about the same exact stuff.
Yeah, they're the wrong statistics, though, Robbie. You need to talk about these statistics, which have been sanctioned, which are okay, you know.
What about that paper over there?
Yeah, I know. We've had the same thing. We just had a strike a few weeks ago from them tube.
From what, though?
From YouTube.
I know, but Christ, from what? Like, what did you say that was objectionable?
Oh, did you mean to say why?
Yes.
Because we had a guy on who had the magic juice.
Steroids?
And not that magic juice, the other magic juice, the one that's been pushed very hard by our governments over the last 18 months.
I gotcha.
And he was a scaffolder, so very active, very fit, healthy guy. And shortly after his first magic juice, he nearly died, was riddled with blood clots and had to have his leg amputated.
I must have missed that fucking episode of yours.
Well, you won't find it because they deleted the episode, gave us a strike, and told us we can't upload anything for a week.
So one thing I did want to talk to you about, and I think we've touched upon it in the beginning here about Stonehenge, but you're into that really old, like mythological, religious kind of sacramental ritual type stuff. That history. I mean, we talk about giants a couple of times. You were on my show as well too. What have you learned, man? Because I'm thinking differently. I had George Howard on in the beginning. He's supposed to be coming on again.
Oh, cool.
Well, we're supposed to be talking about Atlantis because he mentioned in our first chat about Atlantis, and I wanted to know more. But I'm starting to think Atlantis is real, and people would go, "Oh my God, what?" And I go, "Well, it's just an advanced maritime culture." one person I had on my show studies the Bible into actual content of what it actually means. And a lot of these stories or accounts that people are writing down and talking about, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're tripping on drugs, but they're actually just, it's the language gap that we have now. I mean, our intelligence levels are way higher. So what they might be recording, and we all know.
Debatable.
Well,
that's debatable. No. Have you not seen Idiocracy?
I know we're on an up curve, and we're also going on a down curve. But
yeah, definitely.
To the point of every civilization talks about a great flood, but every civilization that we know probably experiences a flood. So it might not necessarily they're talking about the same one, they're just talking about a flood. So I start going, we know about Atlantis written down. When they talk about Atlanteans, are we talking about sea people, or are we just talking about people who have advanced maritime culture when it comes to seafaring and other exports that aren't commonly known to, maybe because we all know like every civilization in the world, when you look at their history, it seems like they're all in their own timeline. And that's because they haven't communicated, they haven't associated. They're all working on different endeavors, some similar, but some very, very, very different. The Egyptians aren't doing the same thing as another place in the world that it could be at the same time period. They're just on different civilization building timelines. Whoever explores first, whoever goes out. So I start going, Atlantis could be real.
I don't know. The late Bronze Age was very interconnected in the Mediterranean world. You had a lot of, the main big empires. You had Egypt, you had the Hittites, you had Mycenae, which turned into Greece. Where did you have? You had Alatia, which was Cyprus, I think. And then sort of the Mesopotamian Babylon. Babylon was a big hitter. And we had Eric Klein on, who wrote the book on this period, the late Bronze Age, about 2 years ago. And he describes it as like the Bronze Age G7. That all these empires were very connected as far as trade and intermarrying. They were diplomatically connected, and that's part of the reason why they collapsed at the end of the Bronze Age, because it was almost like a domino effect. Because there's only certain things you can get in certain places. So Egypt had tons of gold, things like lapis lazuli you'd get from Afghanistan, tin you'd get from the UK, from Cornwall, Spain, copper maybe, you get copper from Spain. So they were very interconnected. And the Minoans were around then as well, I think. Minoans, who were like the big seafaring empire.
This is like my favorite topic. So I like ancient history a lot. As much as I'm into JFK right now, I like the ancient history stuff. So you could probably teach me a little bit about this. What's this, when we talk about a domino effect of all these civilizations falling, is that also happens in the opposite way too? Not just a civilization relying on another civilization for their goods and kind of being dependent on another civilization, but one civilization introducing something to a new civilization that can completely wipe out their civilization, such as I think it's you guys over there. The British people brought over a certain type of, I forgot what drug it was, to China, and they all got addicted to it to a point where it was
opium.
Opium, yeah.
Yeah. That's sort of quite recent history. That's the sort of Victorian era, and that was sort of the British Empire at its worst, really. The opium. Well, that's debatable, but yeah, the opium stuff, and yeah, I mean. It's sort of a balancing act, isn't it? When you have these empires that are sort of vying for supremacy. And that's why in this late Bronze Age period, you had a lot of intermarrying. So they found a big cache of diplomatic correspondence in this place called Tel Amarna in Egypt, which was the sort of cult center that Akhenaten created. He left Thebes and the other religious centers, and he set up this sort of hippie commune in the desert called Akhenaten, and that was going to be his home for his royal family and his court. Because they were sort of exiled and the place collapsed, all these messages and tablets were sort of preserved, because no one knew it was there, really. And they found all these things called the Amarna letters. and that shed a lot of light about what was going on in the late Bronze Age. And it was like letters from Pharaoh to the king of the Hittites and Pharaoh to the Mycenaeans, and they were talking about how they were doing deals on who's going to marry whose daughter and how much gold are you going to send me this year and all this sort of stuff. So it was very interconnected.
That's got to be a weird thing. Like, I wonder if they were aware that the only reason why their civilizations are connected and even friendly is because their daughter and the other king or whoever's son married each other. Like, you had marriages that were on the basis of just bridging two civilizations together. I mean, we see that in like Prince movies or Disney movies all the time. They're like, you must marry him so we our two kingdoms you will unite, something stupid like that. But I wonder if they were aware that that was the only reason. Like, how long are you like friends with these people? Like, you have a beer with your father-in-law or whoever a couple of times, and you realize, oh, we're good people now. No, they're just writing down like, I have to send this guy this amount of gold. The only reason I'm doing it is because he's married to my daughter. And it's like, you get into these weird situations where today, what is that? That's monogamy today, isn't it? No, maybe.
Yeah, it's sort of arranged marriages were common for the aristocracies, weren't they?
Let's until bring that back. I want to bat above my weight class.
I don't think it ever went away. I mean, certainly in the Victorian era, the Napoleonic era, you still have all these diplomatic marriages happening between royal families of Europe. It's like Queen Victoria, her grandchildren. I think from Queen Victoria, when the outbreak of World War I happened, you had the Tsar of Russia was I think a grandson. The Kaiser of Germany was a grandson. The King of England was a They were all related. And this whole world war started because of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, wasn't it? And like all the people leading the big empires, they were all freaking related. Yeah, and then they send millions of men into the meat grinder to fight the battle for them. It's fucked up.
I mean, it is, but what can we do about it? We can't complain about history. It's
dissolve the monarchies. Get rid of the queen.
Well, that's like the weird thing I started to learn about the royal family that I didn't know. There was a movie with Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if you saw it. It's relatively new for Netflix, and it's about like this weed farm that he owns. He has a weed business. But he was like, what you do is you get with all these families, these high families, these royal families, these lords. And what you do is you use their property as like connections, as base points for a lot of your farm plants, because no cops want to go onto the royal family's properties and mess with them. They just like to live away from the people out in the distance on large acres of land, but they have no wealth. All their money's gone. All they're doing is living off of the stuff that was inherited to them. And the whole movie was kind of like that. And you see a different perspective of things when people talk about the royal family. You start realizing a lot of it's just looks. A lot of it really isn't the idea that they might be insanely wealthy now. They have money, sure, but is it as much as like, oh, they can just toss gold out into the street or something like that? No, probably they have a lot of debts that have occurred as well too.
I don't know. The Queen has her own bank.
We're talking about just regular lords.
Oh, right, lords. Yeah, well, that's a different thing. Sort of lords, because we have the House of Lords. Have you heard of the House of Lords?
Sounds like a hippie commune.
It does. It's like the Senate.
Do they drink baby's blood?
Most likely. And worse, probably. Not Regenikine. What's it called?
Regeneron is baby's blood.
No, I thought there was another name for it. A creepier name.
I don't know.
No, it'll probably get us banned off YouTube if I said it anyway.
Why would that get us banned? We just can't talk about magic juice.
But yeah, a lot of the lords, they've inherited these massive like castles basically in like dozens of acres or 100 of acres of grounds, and it costs a lot of money. So a lot of them go bankrupt or they have to sell it off because it costs so much to maintain. They don't have the wealth that they had, centuries ago in their family where they would have exploited the peasants.
Whenever I used to have to read something in school about like an old historical account from a perspective of like a farmer or something like that, I always just hated it. But now that I've like learned, like that's the most valuable part of history. Like I really wish I had a time machine to go get the perspectives. Like I want to be there when the Vikings were coming over and, being introduced to early Christianity and see that monolith that they tried to tear down, and they got basically eviscerated in a sense.
Yeah, that was a real clash of civilizations, wasn't it?
I mean, if I could put you in a time machine, where would you take it?
Oh my God.
You can't do anything because it'll do the butterfly effect, but you can observe, you can watch, you can sit in the corner, maybe rub your nipples a little bit, watch.
That's such a good question, and it's impossible to answer, really. I would probably, one off the top of my head, I would like to go to see the mysteries, the ancient mysteries in Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries, something like that.
Drugs?
Or maybe go to the Oracle at Delphi.
Okay, that's fair. She's probably not as hot as they picture in the movies.
She probably isn't, no. But I'll tell you where I would go. Yes, I would go to the Eleusinian mysteries when Emperor Hadrian was there.
Why?
Because I'm kind of fascinated with Emperor Hadrian.
I don't know who this guy is.
Have you heard of Hadrian's Wall?
Yeah, it's in one of my favorite video games.
What's that? Is it
Skyrim?
Oh, Skyrim, right.
They knocked off of it. It's called Alduin's Wall because the main dragon's Alduin. Not video game information aside, what about this wall is important?
Well, Emperor Hadrian built this wall in the north of England, and it extends, well, when it was built, it extended from the Solway Firth on the west coast of England and went right across the country to Newcastle. And that was it. It was a big long wall, basically right the way across northern England. So you had the Northern English above and the Picts or the Scottish above. And it was to do with taxation more than anything, more than partly for fortification and more about control. So you can control trade going between north and south and then tax it. So that's what Hadrian's famous for. But he's just a very interesting character. He was gay, a gay emperor. He fell in love with a Bithynian boy, and I can't remember his name now. Alejandro. I can't remember his name. But he fell in love with a young Bithynian boy, and he died in mysterious circumstances on the banks of the Nile, and Hadrian never recovered from it. It ruined him, destroyed him. He turned the guy, Antinous, that's what he was called, I think. Antinous, correct me if I'm wrong. And he turned the guy into a god, this young boy into a god. He started a cult of Antinous. I think he's one of the most, I think you'll find, might be wrong on this, but I think there's more statues of Antinous than any other figure from ancient Rome. And he was a slave boy. He was just a boy. He wasn't an emperor or a general or Julius Caesar, but they just keep finding statuary of him because Hadrian was just so obsessed with this boy. And he's a very interesting character. He was a soldier who worked his way up. So he wasn't from the Senate. He wasn't like an upper class guy. He was famous for helping out with the troops. So he wouldn't just stay in his tent and load it up and drink wine and eat and drink olive oil and eat grapes. He would get out and dig the trenches with the other soldiers, like a proper lead by example kind of guy. And I don't know, it's just something interesting with him. He was obsessed with Greece and philosophy and the ancient Greeks. He had a beard. He was the first emperor to have a beard, because that's another Greek thing. It's a sign of his love for Greece. There's just a lot of interesting things about him. And I read a book called Memoirs of Hadrian, which is sort of, it's a novel technically, but Marguerite Yourcenar, it's an old book, she wrote it, but she did so much research, and her research is so good before she write the book that you feel like you actually know the guy when you read the book. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite books ever. And so, yeah, I've always sort of been interested by him. I don't know how we got onto Hadrian.
I was asking you time travel. What would you?
Oh, right. So Eleusinian mysteries. You heard of the mysteries, the ancient mysteries in Greece?
No.
No, it's like a drug ceremony. So So you would be initiated, a bit like Freemasonry is allegedly. You would go to Eleusis, and you would be initiated into the ancient mysteries. And it was some sort of ceremony. No one knows what happened there. Anyone who spoke about it after they'd been initiated would be killed.
Bohemian Grove.
Kind of, yeah. But it seems that they had some sort of drink, some sort of sacrament. And there was a book called The Immortality Key by Brian Marurescu a few years ago. He's been on Joe Rogan, actually. And his research points to the drink in the sacrament being some sort of psychedelic, probably ergot. So that was maybe part of the deal. So I'd love to have known what was really going on there.
Huh. I don't think I'd go that far back. If I had to lock the JFK era, I would just, because I'm not even gonna. I don't know if I'm ready to expose the secrets of the dark world. But I would probably go to when the CIA first started using LSD and realizing how powerful of a drug it was. I've had a few experts on talk about the usage of not just chemical and biological warfare, but also the things that the CIA do in covert action capabilities when it comes to using, and it's linked in with MK Ultra. Here's a fun fact for you. The same person, you know who Jack Ruby is?
Yeah.
So the same person who administered a flu shot to Jack Ruby is also the same psychiatrist for Charles Manson. His name was I literally, hold on, I gotta pull it up. I just sent this to a buddy of mine to do a little bit of research on it. His name is Lou Jolan West. He worked with MK Ultra, and he's in MK Ultra's documents. He heavily worked with LSD and these types of mind altering drugs. Now, the reason why I say that is when we talk about mind altering, you think like mind control, for instance, people go, that's crazy. You talking about like brainwashing. Imagine you come across a drug, LSD, which has mind altering effects, things where people use it and talk about the experience that changed their life, a high that changed their life, where they're never, like, everyone talks about like an LSD experience who's had one in such a prophetic way that makes it sound like this thing that's like, you couldn't even describe it in words. Now, imagine if you found a way, which is the CIA, to take that drug and turn it up to a point where you're not talking about a good trip. You're talking about shattering someone's reality and making them go fucking insane. And like that's what happened with Jack Ruby. After he serves time in jail, he gets out for his court thing where he's about to be relieved of all of his charges. He makes a testimony talking about how they gave him cancer. That's the conspiracy side, but he's quoted saying that. People just think he's going mad because he had cancer. But in his last psychiatric appointment, a guy administers a flu shot, and the guy said he gave it to him because he was complaining about walking ammonia. Now, none of the other people, psychiatrists or whoever that have talked to him before, like 5 of them prior, gave him a flu shot, but this guy did, and this guy that did happened to be linked to the MK Ultra project dealing with LSD. So, but that's still conspiracy apparently, even though we have documents to prove that. Now, wait for it. Ready? Immediately after that shot, Jack Ruby is talking about having visions of Jews falling out of buildings and burning in the streets. He's having horrible hallucinations. This is documented that he was just going mad because of the cancer, apparently. Now, the weird part about the way he got cancer, I don't think they necessarily gave him it in that, even though I've talked to people in biological and chemical warfare who talk about that they definitely have, like, if you look up the attempts to kill Castro, they delivered poison cigars to try and kill Castro. There was
exploding cigars as well.
Yeah. And they also had a thing to slip in his favorite coffee to give him a heart attack, like a certain type of poison. So you just go, okay, I'm not tossing it out of the realm of possibility. But one thing that did, I looked through Malcolm Blunt's archives, who's a guy who went through the National Archives and has all these documents that some of them aren't even online. I'm only going through the ones that are transcribed online. There's a guy that I had on my show who's doing all the rest of the work. He's basically compiled 10 years of research into 7. And he's trying to put it up there for everyone to be able to see. But it's a file. It says Jack Ruby on it. And I click on it, and it talks about x-rays. He was given x-rays, and I look at how many times they give him 36 x-rays in one day, all at different magnitudes. Like they gave him at times, well, hold on, at times 4, it was like 5 x-rays. At times 6, it was like 8 x-rays. At times 10 and 20 was like 10 x-rays. I'm like, holy shit. Like, no wonder he got fucking cancer. You guys fucking through that technology back then, you gave him an x-ray through that technology. Are you kidding?
That was before he got cancer.
Yeah, well, yes. And listen to this. So apparently they said he already had it, but I mean, in a matter of 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, he immediately dies of it. So you're just like, all right, I know cancer hits it. I've had a cancer biologist explain that, and he goes, that is kind of suspicious, but we don't know what causes cancer to speed up and what causes cancer to go down. They know certain things to be able to make a cancer cell, but they don't know how necessarily to be able to. It's different rates, different folks. So I might have to pull up that document just to verify what I just said. But
what form of cancer did he have?
He had it in like his lungs. He had it in his head. He had a bunch of stuff. Apparently, they said
everywhere.
Well, they said he already had it, and I'm just like, how the fuck do you? I'm gonna see if I can. Hold on, I'm gonna try and send myself the document. We might have to pause so I can prove.
We've read the documents. Don't sound like Alex Jones. Although you didn't want to talk about JFK, you just love it. You can't help yourself.
What?
Can you?
What? I'm not talking.
You can't help. You're on a JFK binge.
Well, I mean, shit. I've had fucking 50,000 experts on the show talking about it. Yeah, 100%.
It's one I've just never really looked into. I don't know. I like the older conspiracies more, I guess.
All right, I'm sending myself these photos.
Okay,
this is going to be interesting.
So, considering how many people you spoke to, what is your view now?
I'm not talking about that. Nope.
Oh, you're not? All right. Not making any conclusions.
That's an unsafe topic. I can tell you there's definitely conspiracy involved in it. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
that's where I've always been.
Well, I have documents to show you that the FBI and the CIA, they all talked about that there's definitely conspiracy involved in it. But the idea was that you couldn't talk about that because people would assume it would be the Russians or the Cubans. And if you led that means people would want you to go to war. And it was interesting. I had a guy on my show talk about that the day before the assassination happened, the flight or the military standard procedure to roll out jets and things of that sort to fly them, whatever, as an order that would be given, were taken off the board. They weren't there. And that was the first time ever in history that's ever happened. So it's like someone knew that this was going to happen, and to make sure that nobody assumed it was the Cubans or the Russians, they made sure that the military strategy for what you would do in that situation wouldn't be to go fly over with jets immediately. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I just found, and we're going to look at it. And hopefully my computer's not going to take a shit. Are you looking at what I'm looking at?
No. Oh, there it is. I got some x-rays.
At the top, Parkland Medical Hospital, Ruby Jack. Let's see. 12, these are 12, 15. All right, so we got 12, 15, 12, 15, 12, 15, 12, 13, 12, 14, 12, 20, 12, 21, 12, 27, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12, 12, 12, 11, 12, 14, 12, 12. Wait,
is that the time or the date?
That's the service date.
The date?
I don't know.
How is it the date?
This is in
15th of December.
Well, look.
What, 66?
Well, look right here. Quantity 1, quantity 12, $18.
They're charging him as well. Sure it's not just a money scam.
Where's the they talk about the x-ray I guess this one doesn't that I sent myself, but they talked about the magnitude of what it was on. But look how many fucking x-rays. 12, 20 in one day, 10 in one day, 22, 20, 26. This is way more than 36. Holy shit. This is over a period of like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that'll fuck you up, won't it?
And right beside that picture that I sent myself, there's another one. It was Jack Ruby with a hospital gurney on. He was like hunched over like an old man. The man wasn't that old. He was relatively like 30s, 40s maybe, but he was like hunched over like this, and his eyes had huge bags in it and shit. Well, here's the thing about him. People say he's like a wannabe mafia guy, and he's also a wannabe like police guy because he was friends with the police, but he was also tied to the mafia. He owned a strip club. I've looked at his personality, and this is too soon to say. His personality, he took over the club from his sister who was in poor health. And that's why I think a lot of people knew him wasn't that he was like a mafia guy that run the town, was that he was really friendly because he wasn't supposed to be a mafia guy. He was a normal person who got a club dropped into his lap. And, speculation, he was $44,000 in debt to the IRS before Oswald was killed. And then after Oswald is killed, his debts are cleared and he's speculating buying a second club. So it's owned by the IRS. That's not something that like a crime mafia debt. That's the fucking government that owns your ass. And then I don't know who paid that off. We don't know. At least I don't know from this point. But I'm not going to go into depth of what I think, but I definitely think conspiracy 100%.
Do you ever listen to that speech JFK made before he died about the military industrial complex?
Yeah, I mean, which one? He talked about it twice.
Oh, right. I don't know. The famous one, I guess, because I only
the famous
knew
one
of
is where he mentions shadow societies.
Right.
And that's probably the one you're mentioning. And then there's another one that he's like standing on a podium and he talks about, I don't think I'm in control of in the agencies that supposed to be in charge of. Like you start noticing with JFK, like the Bay of Pigs, what people blame JFK for, a lot of the things that JFK gets blamed for. There was like a 3-strike policy on why the military industrial complex took him out. It just gets really weird when you start realizing like, why did they blame Oswald? And you can say he's a patsy. I mean, there's evidence on all sides. So, I mean, you really can't jump to a conclusion. But when it comes to the autopsy, I mean, the doctors who did the autopsies talk about how Kennedy didn't have a brain when they went to go do the autopsy on him. And they think that's at some point, whether there was a pre-autopsy or whatever, but the brain that they did have was gray, like it was sitting in formaldehyde for a couple of days. And that was by Mike Chesser, who was in Oliver Stone's film. And also the weight of the brain was 1,500 kilograms. A normal brain.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Well, maybe not kilograms.
1,500 grams.
Yeah, 1,500 grams. Sorry, I said kilograms. That's like pounds, isn't it? Whoops. That'd be a big head. That's where the alien stuff gets linked in. Sorry, yeah, I'm bad with measurements. But when it comes to his brain size, a normal brain's only like 1,300 or 1,400. So that means Kennedy would have had above average brain. But then you're like, well, if a bullet went through his head, you wouldn't have an intact brain. And then I had an expert who revealed, and they actually in the archives right now is not real photos of JFK's brain. It's the brain that they take a photo of is fully intact. And the people that they did hire to do the pictures of the brain say, I never took those photos. So they faked photos and they put it in the archives, and that's what's sitting in there today. But then now we have the new ones that have came out also that are in the archive. So you have the fake ones and the new ones. The real ones where it shows a large portion of it is disrupted. And then it goes down some like weird stuff. But I mean, they had 3 caskets delivered at Parkland Hospital. One at like 9, one earlier at 6. And it was just a blank casket. And everyone who says it came from the first casket was Kennedy's body. His head was wrapped, like they did something to his head. And you think, oh, he got shot in the head. Well, everyone at the first hospital, and I think not Parkland, but in Texas no, that's the Parkland one. Bethesda, Maryland is where they got the brain, where they saw that the brain was taken out. At Parkland, what they saw was a hole in the back of his head. And that's why we have the occipital bone from the back of the skull. It's called the Harper fragment. And that's lost. We don't know where that is, but it's a fragment of skull that a guy found in the street a couple of days later. But 70 something of the witnesses, or however many of the witnesses, and then Clint Hill's the famous Secret Service guy in the video who jumps on the back of the car, they all talk about seeing a hole in the back of his head. So when you watch the Zapruder film, you see an explosion to the side of his head. And that's why people think it's fake, because we have live autopsy photos of Kennedy where the whole top of his scalp is off, but his whole face is intact. But if you watch the Zapruder film, the fucking bullet goes and explodes half of his head. But then what the Warren Commission made, the magic bullet, is a diagram of showing this part of the whole head coming off like that, which doesn't fit the autopsy photos. It doesn't fit any of that stuff. And this is all came out over a period of like 25 something years. So at the time it was accepted. Now it's not, because we have the evidence to show that they lied about this type of stuff. And the magic bullet theory is 3 bullets were fired at JFK. We know there was more than that. One misses, hits the street, bounce off the curb, hits James Tague in the face, who's a guy walking under the underpass. The second one hits Kennedy in the back of the throat, goes out his front. Third one hits him in the head, goes through his head, goes into the guy in front of him, Connolly's body, hits him like the shoulder, the rib, all this type of shit, and ends up in his leg, and it's perfectly intact. Okay. And what's interesting is when you watch the Zapruder film, the part where they say it's edited, it's very, very quick, but there's a flash on the front windshield. And what we do have in evidence is that it looks like a bullet hole went through the windshield. So it's a front shot. And if you look at Kennedy's neck, the people who did the autopsy said you could stick a finger in the hole in his neck and it would only go into like maybe the tip of your finger. So that means somebody pulled a bullet out. And that means a bullet never went through the back of his neck. A bullet hit him from the front. And that's why you see him in the film grab his neck like this.
It does, yeah.
People also say, which is controversial, is that Kennedy had his hand kind of over his mouth and grabbing his neck like he was trying to cough something out of his throat. Because you have to imagine getting hit in the throat with a bullet. Imagine what that's got to feel like. It's probably so fast that you feel like something's lodged in your throat and you probably do try and cough. And that I mean, that could be true too. Like I said, everything right now, like me talking about this, the whole community is probably going to light me up about it. But it's to me, it's just fascinating. I'm like, there's definitely things you can question here. I mean, when the vehicle went to Ford Motor Company to get repaired, they fucking repaired the car, had it back out in a matter of like under 48 hours. It was no, it was faster than that. It was like I think it was like 12 or 16 hours or something like that. But they had it back for the president to use because the new president Johnson's now being sworn in. Because that's what happens when one of our presidents dies, another one, the vice president takes over. So he was getting sworn in. He had his car right back. But when they repaired the motorcade, cleaned out all the blood of Kennedy and everything out of the fucking motorcade, the evidence that we do have is there's a hole in the windshield and it looks like a bullet hole went through it. And not only did they replace the windshield once, they replaced it twice. And here's the more controversial part of it, which we do have documents to prove, but a lot of lone nutters don't accept this. They believe that one person killed the president. A lot of other people believe he looked like he was caught in a crossfire, like someone was firing from the front and someone was also firing from the building. They replaced the windshield again because when they got the car back, they tried to make a dent like the normal one had on the inside already before the bullet hole went in it, and they did it on the wrong side of the glass. It's that fake glass, the one that can stop bullets and shit, or not stop bullets, but it's like plexiglass, like shit you put on like when kids can hit it and it will just scratch. It won't make a hole in it. A bullet can go through it, but it won't like break. And they had that on their vehicle. They made a dent on the wrong side of it. So they had to replace it again. And we have the receipts and everything for that as well, too, because they had to make sure it was on the right side to make sure it looked normal. And in the motorcade, there was a bullet hole where a bullet got lodged at the top under the rear view mirror thing or above the rear view mirror thing that they fixed and put back out there. And people think Johnson did it. I don't think that, but there's evidence to prove it. And there's evidence to say he's innocent. I think he found out about it later and he did his best to cover it up. I think when you look at who killed Kennedy, you have to look at the giant military industrial complex. Also, Dallas police politics at the time, too. Most of the members on Dallas police were KKK members. So,
really?
And a lot of the people who, I guess, agreed or it seemed like their interrogation was forced, like a cop will be like, "Are you sure you didn't see this?" And they'd be like, "I think that's what I saw." People that also wouldn't testify, they weren't white, they were black. So now you get into an area of like how many people, like there was a guy with a drinking and driving charge from 10 years ago. To us, that doesn't seem like a big issue, but that's like having a brand on your forehead back then. So I didn't know Oswald. It's like you fucking worked with the guy. You didn't know him? Yeah, I didn't know Oswald. No, I don't know who you're talking about. And a lot of people didn't want to comment. And that's because you would get, I mean, at the time of Dallas politics back then, they weren't very open about that stuff. I mean, they published in their newspapers, not President Kennedy was coming to town. They said, Mr. Kennedy, you're already not, I mean, he was warned not to go to Dallas. And because, like I said, it's all controversial. I'm going to end up ranting about this because nobody ever wants to hear me rant about JFK. But when it comes to, oh God, I don't know. There's so much controversial territory on a lot of this stuff. But when they had Oswald in jail for killing the president. 40 hours. The only notes that they have, no one recorded it, no transcripts, no nothing. The only notes they have is a guy from Hosty, who was an FBI agent who was taking notes. The guy who planned to take Oswald to the car where he got shot by Jack Ruby, the guy who planned that put one guy on his left, one guy on his right, one guy behind him, and one guy in front of him. The guy in front of him, your only job is to make sure he gets to the car safely. The guy goes to open up the door to the car, leaves the whole front open, and Jack Ruby shoots him in the gut. So you have this aspect of like what happened. And apparently, when they patted him down, when they arrested him, he didn't have any bullets in his pocket or anything. Then, when they patted him down a second time, they found 5 revolver bullets on him for his revolver. And it's like, okay, they missed the bus pass the first time they patted him down. They missed that. So the second time they found that, and also they found 5 bullets. You can miss the bus pass because it's a flimsy piece of paper, but 5 fucking bullets? You miss that on a guy? Like, it's just, you start realizing there's a lot of things that aren't adding up. A lot of things weren't ethically done. And then looking through documents, I actually can probably pull one of these up. I sent myself a lot of stuff. Let's do that this episode. How about that? I'm sorry, I'm going to end up hijacking the episode.
It's all right. I'm interested. Like I said, I've not really looked into any of this in any detail, other than knowing that there is fuckery afoot to some degree or not. And I'm always skeptical of like mainstream. What is up with you? You look like you've got a face of disgust.
I don't have my fucking glasses on.
Oh, is that your squint? That was a squint, was it? I thought you were like shitting your pants.
I was squinting, trying to look at this damn documents. The damn screen's bright. My eyesight has gone to shit from doing this podcast. I'm sitting in a fucking dimly lit room staring at a computer screen for 10 hours every time I do a recording day. My fucking eyesight has just gone to shit.
Really?
So wait, I pulled up the x-rays on here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna, when this fucking loads, I'm gonna pull up a file on a guy named John McCone, who's like one of these individual actors working in the CIA, who's like a rogue agent. Well, I think this is the document. It's just weird to me that I had to highlight because in the document it says weak link in parentheses.
Weak link. Oh, right. So the weakest link of the chain. So this guy's a liability.
When you have a government document saying weak link, you're probably not going to survive much longer.
No, it's not very. It's very thinly veiled, that threat, isn't it?
I don't think this is I can't. My computer's loading so slow.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's like. I don't know. Are you there?
Why was he a weak link?
Huh?
This is like psychological profiling stuff. Why do they think they must have? So they must be spying on their own then.
Well, when
CIA.
A lot of these agents, like they would talk trash on each other. Like he would. So, oh God, I can't even go into all this.
It's all right.
Yeah, this is like a really long document. I'm not gonna be able to read all this.
It's fine.
Okay, I'm gonna try and find one that I did save on my computer that I can pull up. And my computer, I think, froze. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah, you're still there.
Oh, my computer.
Have you heard about these little computers called B-Links?
The fuck's a B-Link?
It's this little computer. It's like the size of a thick book, and it's like $150 or something, and you can do gaming on it and shit.
I've never heard of it.
No, yeah, have a look on Amazon. I fancy one. I don't know. I don't need one, but I don't know.
Did you think that? Why? Yeah, you do need one. You know what? You do need one. You know why you need one?
Enlighten me.
Because we need more than what we can handle.
More CPUs, more threads. I need more threads. I need a thread dripper.
I must have deleted it off my computer. Well, it must be not true then. I must have saw some.
You've deleted. You don't have the documents. You've deleted the documents.
Well, I
shredded it digitally.
I pulled them. I know. I pulled them up, and now I get it why people fucking say they deleted something. Like, oh, it's pretty simple, especially with the computer. But this was all handwritten shit. There's no fucking way.
They just get scanned, don't they?
I am checking my trash right now.
Oh, don't empty your recycle bin.
I don't. We are we're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. I'm gonna find it. Fuck, I'm not gonna be able to sleep now until I figure it out. Come on. Maybe if I type my name Robbie, will it pop up?
I think you need to work on your digital hygiene.
This is terrible for the listening audience. They're like, what the fuck?
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Tell me a story while I find this.
Would you like to hear a story about the son of the Pope?
Sure. Is it good or bad?
Son of the Pope.
No, I don't really have a son of the Pope story.
Oh, you just have a soundboard?
I'm the son of the Pope.
What is that? What is that?
It's a guy who was caught in some girl's trunk of the car, and he'd been living in the girl's car for about a week, and the woman figured it out. There's some smell coming from her trunk, and I think she called the cops, and the cops came and opened the trunk to find him there, and his first words were,
I'm the son of the Pope.
He's the son of the Pope.
Oh, shit. That woman that went out to her car and a guy was in there for like 48 hours or something. I think I saw that video.
Yeah, he's the son of the Pope.
How did he get in there? I know he's like mentally, like something was wrong with him.
How dare you?
No, like he wasn't
How dare you?
He was like bipolar or something.
Do you not believe him?
No, I don't believe he's the son of the Pope. Okay. Pretty sure the Pope can't have kids.
Really? Have you heard about Mr. Borgia?
Who's that?
Caesar Borgia. The Borgias, he became Pope back in the Renaissance period. He was a proper dick slinger.
Ugh.
God knows how many kids he had.
Good God, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I think popes not having children is quite a modern development, really.
I don't think they're allowed to because it would blow their.
They keep it on the DL, haven't they? They got to keep it on the DL when they have
blow their cover. Oh yeah, so I can show you. I can show you this. Something I do. I found the files of all my stuff. I also have LSD interrogations. I'm gonna pull that up. It says click the tap to follow link, and I click it and it doesn't open. So I'm gonna wait for this to load. They had a thing.
You need a young Jamie.
I know. They had a thing, a document where they mentioned LSD interrogations when they talked about dealing with people with covert operations. Now, if you know anything about the CIA, is that they're not supposed to activate on domestic land. So they can only do overseas missions. Now, we know that they activate on domestic land, but that's just what their things say. You can't do that. So that means any interview they're doing with an operational witness or whoever is obviously going to be covert operations. So you can then use LSD. So they basically in legal speak said, and only covert operations you're allowed to use LSD. And then it's like, well, every person you're interviewing is going to be in covert operations. So it's like, you're not wrong, but you're an asshole. Like that's the thing. So I'm going to pull up. So what I'm about to pull up right now is a press clipping from an Australia news thing that I think you're going to find very interesting to know that. So there's a guy named Howard Hunt who made a video on his deathbed to his son. And he was one of like the people involved in Watergate. And I don't think they ever did this, but what he did say was, oh yeah, we had ideas of slathering LSD on somebody's driver's steering wheel. And hopefully like they would obviously soak it up through their skin and fucking drive into traffic. So like shit like that was like, if you know about the Castro attempts, that's not that strange to you, but here's the document. Let me know when you can see what I'm seeing. Can you see it?
Still working its way through the pipes.
It says
internet pipe. Oh, here it is.
So inside Washington, CIA withheld vital intelligence from the Warren Commission. So at this point, we think the Warren Commission's an issue, but also it's the CIA holding documents from the Warren Commission holding documents from the CIA. This one right here says, despite the commission's written request for all documents that might shed light into the assassination, CIA authorities failed to turn over a national intelligence estimate warning that is the Kremlin policy to remove from public office by assassination Western officials who actively opposed Soviet policies.
Wow.
So
how about live and let live? Fucking hell, Ruskies.
titled Soviet Strategic Executive Action. The suppressed CIA document went into the shocking details of how agents of KGB, the Soviet secret police, are trained to do away with Western leaders, including officials in the US, and to make their deaths appear due to natural causes. One of the KGB's newly devised assassination weapons is a pneumatically operated poison ice atomizer, which leaves no wound or other evidence of the cause of death. While this deadly weapon has yet to be used against any high Western official, hundreds of KGB agents covertly operating outside of Russia have been supplied with these pocket-sized guns. There's even a guy, the Umbrella Man, that gets mentioned sometimes in the JFK thing. He had a fucking blow dart in his umbrella to shoot at people. So this is what I found really fascinating. One recently reported assassination technique is to electrocute an individual by luring him to use a telephone connected to a high voltage wire during a thunderstorm.
Wow.
How fucking complicated is that? Imagine being that guy and trying to be like, oh, I'm gonna fucking lure you in. Let's see what else I got here.
Yeah, it's like what are the most inventive ways we can think of killing people without being found out?
So this is the LSD thing. So I'm trying to see if I can find. I pulled this up a couple of times on the show. Just to me, it's interesting. So protection of identities. Where is it? Legal jeopardy of interviewees. In category 3B above, abuses and improprieties, an important issue is how can the legal rights of the individual be best protected in cases where U.S. law may have been violated? The problem of criminal jeopardy probably will not arise in the case of overseas operations, but the SSC could revive some of the domestic improprieties covered by the Rockefeller report, such as LSD experiments or mail intercepts. So they just said over here, they will not arise in overseas operations. And then we're dealing with a document from the fucking CIA whose only job is to activate overseas. So any person they're interviewing is a fucking overseas operative. So you have this aspect of legal speak. Now they can use LSD. And then we get to my thing about learning more about West. This guy who apparently made a statement about somebody saying that this guy knew too much. The guy who worked on all these LSD projects with West, the guy who administered the shot to Jack Ruby, goes to a meeting on the 11th floor and falls out of the 11th floor because apparently a drug overdose and fell out the window.
The psychiatrist?
Not the one that I mentioned. He worked with that guy.
Fuck.
Yeah. Right. Well, Sidney Gottlieb, I think his name is the one of the guys who was in charge of MK Ultra. The one he worked with a lot of people involved, like with West and all these other people who studied LSD and did all these research experiments that are unethical. He never talked and was very, very I don't know. It's just there's a lot of tensions in the CIA at the time. There were individual people with like missions that weren't telling anybody what their missions were because they were all given separate things, and that's why they think Oswald was Central Intelligence Agency. The government said they have no documents on Oswald being CIA, but we know they surveilled his mail for 4 years before the week before the assassination of Kennedy. They dropped it the week of Kennedy's assassination. They did that on purpose to be like, we don't have any files on Oswald because they think when you're investigating someone for an assassination, you're going to check the mail before the first week and also the after week. You're not going to check anything really farther back before that. So they thought anybody that would request information on Oswald would just do the week prior and the week after. And people did longer than that. Give me your mail for 3 years. What? Give me your mail for 3 years. I think that's the FBI's file.
They would probably say, well, we were monitoring him because we thought he was a Soviet asset.
They did. I mean, they had, the weird part is they had him hanging out with right-wing people in bars, and they also had him pinned as a person that was a communist. So you're just like, these are two different personalities, and they realized those are the escape plans. Like you can pin him as a commie defector, or you can pin him as a right-wing political extremist. So
right, and JFK was going to Dallas, Texas, red state, and it was not as popular.
Well, it's just difficult because even if you look at the Warren Commission is thorough as hell. But whenever they get a testimony that doesn't skew away or skews away from their original statements, they just start going into the person's character. And like a government investigation into the assassination of a president shouldn't be trying, like it should be to investigate who killed the president. This whole investigation was Oswald did it, and we're going to show you how. So you have people that are claiming like testimonies like, I never saw a person. I saw a person that was short and all this. And they go, well, this witness hadn't been drinking this week, but prior to this, they're known to be an alcoholic. And it would just go into the witness's character. But the number of fucking witnesses that died is insane.
After they gave evidence or before?
No, after the assassination of Kennedy, there were people that gave a testimony that they were forced kind of into, but then they were like, there's a conspiracy phone calls of like they were going to say like the real what happened to Kennedy. And like they were in their 20s. I think one dude was shot in the back of his yard. A guy mistaked him for being a deer. Then there was one dude who died by karate chop to the throat.
Holy shit.
Yeah. There's like weird deaths about with a lot of these witnesses, man, that you can question for sure.
Fascinating.
I might have to pull up one of those fucking witnesses' deaths.
Yeah. Karate chop to the throat. I mean,
the shot in your backyard doesn't get you. You're in a fucking community, man. What the fuck are you shooting deer in somebody's backyard?
Maybe it was Halloween and he was dressed up. He confused the assailant.
You know what? You could be right.
No, the karate chop's more interesting to me because that seems insane, killing someone with a karate chop. That doesn't seem possible. You're doing your disgusting squints again. Oh my God. I wish I could afford a Shure SM7B.
I wish I'd be shot in the back of my yard as a deer. That's fucking nuts to me, dude.
Well, we don't have that. So we don't have guns over here.
I mean, you don't have. Oh, that's right. It banned them all. You have stabbings, though. Don't fucking try and find another way out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the... Well, if people want to kill people, they'll always find a way, won't they? Stop looking at me like that.
Hang on. I'm trying to read the goddamn documents. Okay, all right. Oh, holy shit. Okay, so I can show you the massive list of people who died, or I can just show you some of the top ones that they put up top.
Give me like the top 5.
Dude, there's a lot.
I want the most interesting ones. I mean, it's not interesting. If they just die, it's not interesting. I want the ones that die in interesting circumstances.
I've just found the first document that shows the deaths. A lot of stuff are people's books that they want you to buy, so I don't feel like trying to go. And the list goes on. Let's see. Eddie Benavidez. Domingo Benavidez was the closest witness to the Tibbet slaying. When first questioned by authorities, he said he did not think that Oswald was a killer. 2 months later, someone shot and killed his look-alike brother, Eddie Benavidez. Possibly in a case of mistaken identity, the killer was never found. Albert Guy Bogard, 41, died February 14th, 1966. Bogard was a salesman at downtown Lincoln Mercury in Dallas who testified that a few weeks before the assassination, a man resembling Oswald and using Oswald's name took a high-speed test drive in one of Bogard's cars. The real Oswald did not know how to drive. After Kennedy's death, Bogard was severely beaten and hospitalized. Later, he was found dead in his car in Howesville, L.A., a victim of carbon monoxide poison. His death was listed as a suicide. Hale Boggs, a United States Senator from Louisiana. Boggs had been a member of the Warren Commission. A week before he vanished, he publicly voiced his skepticism of the Warren report and called for a new investigation into Kennedy's death. Boggs was flying in a small plane from Anchorage to Tijuana, Alaska, when his aircraft disappeared in the rugged terrain. Lee Bowers.
Stay away from light aviation and hot tubs.
Wow, Jack Ruby's listed on here. Ruby entered the hospital with cancer and died a few weeks later after a blood clot to the heart. Huh. There's a lot of fucking people, man.
Yeah, all within like a few years. Mind you, that guy's 1972. Boggs?
Early Roberts, 60. I need to find who's the young people that died in this. These people are like in their 50s. That person's 37. Clyde Johnson. Reverend Johnson was they killed a fucking reverend. One of the key witnesses at Jim Garrison's trial. Like both Ferry and Shaw, Johnson was an admitted homosexual and planned to testify that he attended parties at which Shaw, Ferry, Ruby, and Oswald were present. On February 18th, 1969, Johnson was beaten so badly he was unable to even talk. A few months later, he was shot to death near Greensburg, LA.
So was Oswald and Ruby both homosexual?
Oswald wasn't. they were talking about Shaw and the people that were doing the investigations. Clay Shaw.
Oh, so it says right because it said Shaw. He attended parties at which Shaw, Ferry, and Ruby's attended.
Well, the thing is,
I'm thinking of a different type of party, aren't I?
Well, people try and pin that witnesses said that they saw Oswald at Ruby's club, but there's been no documents on that because to make the lone gunman fit, you have to make sure that Ruby didn't know Oswald. But clearly, Ruby called somebody, and there's a phone call document of it where he was saying they're trying to get me to kill and assassinate Oswald. He's going to be assassinated. Somebody better stop me. Like he was trying to get arrested, it seemed like, to be prevented from doing that, but nobody did it. Like I said, all this basically is just going to get me in trouble talking about all this because everyone's gonna be like, you don't know. It's like I don't know. I'm trying my hardest, but I'm looking through documents and shit, and it's the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. But I think it's interesting. I advise anybody to get interested.
Yeah, people have spent their whole lives looking into this, haven't they?
50
writing multiple books. Yeah. So yeah, you're up against it, aren't you, Robbie?
I'm 2 months.
One
in.
man with a plan.
2 months.
2 months. That's it.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I know. It's consuming.
Yeah. I need a good conspiracy in my life.
That's not.
I think the last one I looked into was the Titanic.
That I've looked into that one, and I had Jessica, the archaeologist, on here tell me that it's not real. The Titanic went down because of an iceberg. I don't believe it, but whatever.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? There's a lot of weirdness around the Titanic one. I don't know if I buy it or not.
What's your favorite conspiracy?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I suppose the big one's September 11th, isn't it?
Damn. I had a person who's wrote a book for the family doing a second investigation on that.
Wrote a book for what?
He wrote a book
for the family.
He wrote
family of victim.
Well, he wrote a book about the families of 9/11 wanting an investigation properly, a second investigation into 9/11.
Right.
Because there's 118 apparently paramedics that day that talked about hearing mini explosions. Like
Who's the author?
devices.
Who's the author?
Ray McGinnis. He was on my show, I think episode 1159.
Right.
Might have got that number wrong. Might be 89.
I'm thinking of someone else, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of depresses me, to be honest.
I think it's scary to think that something like that can happen, but I think you also have to be aware of stuff like that. Like, I don't mind the deep politics to a point, but also I think it can freak you out, and I can understand why people would just disbelieve it or call it conspiracy. But like I said, that 1095 360 document where they talk about, label all these people as conspiracy theorists, dude, that's exactly what we've been talking about. The media has been doing for a long fucking time. And now we have a documented proof. It might be at an older date, but it's documented proof that exists.
This is why I'm interested in the media and the way the media portrays things.
Like
we know that
documentary?
Unvaccinated. Oh, that BBC one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that.
I watched her get so pissed when all of them were like, oh, so you're going to get vaccinated? Like, no. And she's just like, because immediately in her head, she goes, oh my God, they're not going to fund my movie. My whole plan didn't work of trying to convince these people. Then she spinned it and she was like, well, why? Well, okay, maybe at one point. They were all giving her like, maybe one day.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think some people, if you've not had it by now, you're not going to have it.
I think
we've had long enough.
I think the media has a giant role to play in societal change. And I just think it's crazy how much power that they really have in a lot of aspects of things. Like, they can fucking raise gas prices. They can fucking do whatever the hell they want whenever they want to report it.
Same with recessions. You can talk yourself into a recession. The good thing is that you can just change the definition of a recession over there, can't you? It's not 2 quarters of negative growth anymore. You just sort of ignore that.
Huh?
That's what your guys did, didn't they? Didn't they come out and say a recession isn't 2 quarters of negative growth anymore?
I've been so out of the new politics today. I've been into the old shit. I'm trying to bring it back to 1963. And then, so all the new stuff that goes, I probably couldn't tell you what happened in the past 2 months.
Well, I've just had a week on holiday and I had no internet, basically.
I've cut off my social media.
Yeah, you're not doing it anymore? Not even Twitter?
I post once a day. That's it.
And is that the link for your show?
That's the link to
the
the
new episode. Yeah, that's what I pretty much do.
It's not that I don't want to talk to people. It's just I just don't have the mental capacity to. I found getting off social media is probably the best thing I've ever done. I don't really care about followers. I don't care about that. People listen to my show or they don't. People come across it or they don't. But my subscribers have gone up. So I'm just like, okay.
What do you put that down to?
What do you mean?
Is it just word of? Do you think it's word of mouth?
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing it on, because like most people think that social media is the way to sort of get the word out, isn't it? To advertise.
I definitely think the JFK topic definitely got me probably 200 subscribers easy, in a short amount of time. But I also think that it's just starting to go up 1, 2, and I think it's, I just think, yeah, it's probably word of mouth. I mean, people come across it and new people come across it. They subscribe to it. They look through the catalog, and I got 1,000-something episodes for you to look through. Down to like one.
You've been crushing it with the guests.
Thanks, man.
Some really good ones. We've shared a few. We had David Harrison on.
Who?
Your mate. And
who?
I think there's someone. David Harrison. Oh, Freemason. History of Freemasonry.
I thought you said Debbie Dyerson. I was like, who the fuck is Debbie Dyerson? I could tell you every guest. I've got a cold. If you said a name right now, I could tell you if they've been on my show or not.
Really?
I remember.
I can't believe you can do that for 1,000. Well over 1,000.
I had a memory guy on my show and he goes, "Oh, can you remember the number?" I thought I could. I can't remember the number. I could tell you who's been on my show or not. If you gave me a list of like 8,000 names, I could point out and highlight each one who's been on my show.
I know you've had Nick Pope on.
Yes.
Because he turned us down about a year ago.
That sucks.
I said, no, I'm too busy.
Yeah. Well, he's doing all that like ancient history documentaries and all that.
Is he? Ancient history?
Or ancient aliens?
Rather than aliens. Oh, right, yeah. Yeah. We're doing Atlantis this week.
Yes, let's talk about it a little bit.
We got Matt from Apocalypse YouTube channel coming on this week. So he's bringing slides, and I love slides.
Do you think it's real?
Atlantis, yeah.
Do you think it's what they say it is?
Well, who's they and what are they saying? Because there's different views.
Golden city underwater of sea people.
I think Atlantis was in the Azores. That's my location.
Is that an ass cream?
Yeah, Preparation Azores.
Preparation Azores.
Yeah, it's near you. It's like in the middle of the Atlantic, like past the Bahamas. And it's just a few islands now, which were like the top of the mountains in the before the last ice age terminated. It would have been 400 foot at least lower the sea level. So it would have been quite a big island. A very big island.
Did they find any ruins?
Oh, it's underwater. It's underwater. You've only got like the tops of the mountains that are left.
Yeah, but we can scuba dive. Did they find any ruins?
Oh, no. Not that I know of. Damn. But who's doing it? Who's doing it? I don't think anyone's been, seriously. But it sort of fits everything. It fits the Plato's description of where it would be. And Matt has done loads of videos on YouTube explaining why he thinks it's the Azores. Randall Carlson, I think, thinks it's the Azores.
Plato speculated about a lot of stuff. I've talked to a lot of people about AI and like transhumanism, and I've heard you mention it on your show. I've had some of like the top transhumanists on my show speak about it, which was when I hear you mention it, I'm like, he's fucking saw one of my episodes. I know he's had to see a transhumanist episode.
I don't know. I'm very wary of the whole transhumanist movement. It doesn't sit well with me at all.
I think there's good aspects to it, but I think when you look at the idea of AI, which I've also been getting interested into it, it probably will excel past us, but there's different pathways to how that will happen. I had Roman Yampolansky, I think it's Yampolansky. I don't want to say his last name wrong. He studies existential risk, which is AI taking over, like computers taking over. And he was very pessimistic about everything. Like he didn't really talk a lot. It was more like I'd ask him something and then he'd give me like a one-word response or something like that. But I was like, well, you seem like you're pessimistic about it. And he just goes, because I've been in this in a couple of years and it's just like it's there's no good. You create an AI who puts in the data. You expect people to be able to decipher over a decision of who puts in the data. Then he brought up this idea of like, there's a form of AI, like Unity, I think it's called, where it doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any power, it just suggests stuff to you. But the big fear is if you create an AI that it makes decisions of like, here's the best path to choose based on the data, here's all this. How does it decipher if the cure for cancer wouldn't just be annihilating humans? Which is an extreme example. But with AI, you have to at one point take off the training wheels and upload it to the internet to be access all that information on there. You can't just have it be individually taught to people. And the way I've heard people using AI now is like incorporating AI into our buildings, creating digital buildings, living architecture, which it brings up a whole host of problems. I mean, if you give it the internet, it's going to be powerful, but also at the same time, what's going to come across on the internet to decipher what's the best choice or not? It might come off a bunch of flat Earth documentaries, and then we're in a rabbit hole.
Does it not depend on what you program it with, though? Because isn't there like was it Asimov's 5 laws for AI? And it was like, I can't remember them, but it was like, you can't hurt a human. You can't hurt a human via your inaction. I think that was one of them. There's like a handful of rules that you can program into the AI that would prevent it from doing something nuts, like wiping out humans to stop spam email.
If the fucking CIA agents can find a way to find loopholes, I think an AI that's designed to be better than humans could easily do it in 2 seconds.
Yeah, but why? What would the motivation for that be? See,
why? I mean, if we're gonna program it to be like us but better than us. So you think about like when it looks at like the best possible choice. How many fucking BBC documentaries do they have about the fucking Earth and us killing it? They're probably gonna be like, well, I want to fucking live on this planet, and the humans seem to be the worst thing for the planet.
The AI watched one too many David Attenborough documentaries and decided to wipe us out
on a pile of rubbish.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest threat to humanity, definitely, that everyone is sleeping on. But I think it's kind of inevitable. I'll tell you what, no, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's impossible. Maybe that we won't get there.
I think humankind, from what I heard of past guest Peter Ward talk about the Medea hypothesis, which is like the human species is kind of inherently suicidal. Like we're just finding ways to destroy our own species. It sounds pessimistic, but it's the opposite of the Gaia hypothesis. It's just the idea that, we are destroying ourselves. How will we eventually reach that inevitable doom? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be people Mad Max scenario, but I think eventually we're going to probably create something. I mean, if you go by the religious text, God created us. Well, we're doing the same thing God's doing by creating life. And that life is just going to create something else. And then you get into this weird realm where the transhumanists talk about this idea that these things will excel past us and leave us. And, we're going to end up phasing out. And then those are going to be our digital children. I think Avi Loeb talks about that's the next area of space exploration is our digital children conquering the galaxy.
Yeah, that's fucking depressing. It's like with the whole transhumanist thing, I don't have a problem with like prosthetics. Like if someone gets a leg blown off in Afghanistan, then give them a new leg. That's fine. It's when we start augmenting our shit.
It's before that. It's when someone gets a new leg because their leg got blown off in war, and then some asshole goes, I want robot legs, and then they get in a car accident and get their legs taken off.
Yeah, people volunteering to have the certain things improve, like you could have super eyesight, super hearing and stuff, and then that gives you an advantage over the rest of us poor meat bodies.
We have people that do that now. There's people that like to have a limb taken off. They get a limb surgically removed. It's a type of like sexual thing that they like.
Yeah, that's one of the weirdest kinks ever.
They're turned on by like missing a finger.
I think you've got to paddle your own boat in this regard. And nuts people are always going to do crazy shit, like volunteer to have their arms amputated so they can have bionic arms. And you've just got to say, well, that's your choice. It's not what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stay a regular old human because I think that's how we're supposed to be.
Well,
I don't buy this progress for progress' sake argument.
Well, that's what you say, but then you'll extend that so you don't want your kids to augment themselves. But then if you live in a society that now the majority have augmented themselves, they're just going to do it to try and stay with the times. Eventually corporations and things only do like, well, if you had that chip in your arm, you could easily scan in your purchase instead of having to pull out your wallet and pull out your card and your cash. And then eventually they're not going to accept card and cash, only chip.
Yeah, but they always prey on this biggest weakness, and that's convenience. People do it for convenience. Yeah. But I think, no, if you bring your kids up, I was going to say the right way, but that's not really.
You're not the template parent. Don't give me that.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'm not saying you're a bad parent, but there's someone out there like, hey, how come you know better than me?
Hopefully you can bring your kids up in a way where they value their autonomy and that they value things other than physical goods and services.
Too late.
And yeah, probably. You would hope. But this tends to be a thing that comes with when you get more mature anyway. So maybe if you'd asked me 20 years ago if I want to have a chip in my hand so that I can pay for stuff without getting my wallet out, maybe I would have said, hell yeah, sign me up. Put that fucking shit in me.
You can give me a robot body if I can keep my brain and my dick.
What's so special about your dick?
I just need that to be me.
Really? Why?
Because it's not too shabby.
I'll get you. You know? You killed it.
something has to be a man. Something has to be a man.
Well, it raises the question of like, what makes you a human? If you keep having these augmentations, when do you stop being a human?
When
you get the bionic arms, you get the chip in your hand, you get the magic eyes. When do you stop being a human?
When they do a scanning test on you and they realize that you're now 100% robot. 100% non-organic material is what it would say.
So if you just have a robot cock like you, that you're still a human?
There's a show about this actually. Farzar. Have you ever seen Farzar on Netflix? It's made by the guy. There's a guy. It's basically like a Flash Gordon. You ever see Paradise PD?
No.
You've seen Family Guy?
Yeah.
So it's like a knockoff. There's a version called Paradise PD, a bunch of cops and stuff, and it's that Family Guy style. But the guy who does Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk, made a show called Farzar. It's like a Flash Gordon knockoff. But one of the robots on there, he ends up getting the only thing he had left was his human groin, and he ends up getting it. He ends up getting it like taken off in an accident or something like that. So then now he's got a robot groin. And the cops come to his house and they're like, we're putting you under arrest and we're taking away your home. And he's like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, you're a robot and you don't have rights here. And he goes, what are you talking about? I'm not a robot. And they scan him and it says 100% non-organic material. And like, are you sure? And he's like, oh my God, my dick was my last human part. And then he ends up going to the palace or whatever to go live there. But, I just thought, I mean, that's a real thing. Like we talk about, like there's people talking about robot rights. I mean, Google, they thought his AI was sentient, so it must have rights. I mean, there's going to be digital rights, not only with like, we talk about copyright in the beginning. There's going to be rights on a bunch of stuff if we start cloning things, if we start getting into this area, but there's going to be a large gray area. I mean, I had a person on here speak about ethical concerns with all these apps. For instance, she's from, I think, Ghent University in like Belgium. Heidi Mertes, she talked about an issue with some of these apps is that there's like a period tracker, for instance. When you track your period through an app, what they don't tell you is they don't have to use your name, but they can send your age, your data, and some of your health stuff. And it's through that terms and services that most people don't read and they accept. And she goes, each time you would have to do something like that, it would be a consent form, a medical consent form you have to sign. But it's how these apps are invading your medical privacies and your medical rights. So now you have an issue where you have a large gray area of people getting their data and stuff taken. Diabetics, for instance, necessarily they don't read the terms and services, they accept it. And also there's dangers there too. People hack your little insulin pump thing on your arm and give you a dosage when you're not supposed to. I mean, there's plenty of ethical concerns and gray areas that need to be looked at. People are looking at, but the technology is going way too fast.
Have you heard of the Zoe app?
What?
The Zoe app.
Can I summon aliens with it?
No, it was set up by Professor Tim Spector in the UK. I forget which university it's attached to. I'm guessing probably Oxford or Cambridge. I don't know. And it was started because of the COVID, because of the vids. So he started out this app called the Zoe app, and it's a health tracking app. And you download his app, and then you put information in every day. You log on and put in your health information, and you put in how you're feeling, if you've had any symptoms, if you've had a test, what was the result of your test? Was it positive or negative? And millions, like 2 million people in the UK signed up for it. And we're just handing this data over every day for 2 years. And then the government shut down his funding about 3 months ago. And so they're starting to collect other information now. They're looking into diabetes and other research. And it's praised as this amazing thing. We're gathering all this, you know, think of the insights we can have with all this massively chunked health data across the population. And it's the same thing. It says, oh, it's anonymized. But do you not think they're going to sell that shit?
Well, that's why Apple iPhones get hacked into the most, because most people in the United States at least have an Apple iPhone, which why they update all their services all the time. They always update the phone because there's always from like Saudi Arabia or whoever trying to get into the iPhone. That's the most promising one. Apparently, it's like China is interested in it. A bunch of overseas corporations are trying to. That's why they always have to update their privacy and they have to update their phones all the time because they're always constantly people are finding new software, Pegasus, all these different types of spyware apps. You know what Pegasus is?
Never heard of it. Other than the horse, the winged horse.
This got Bezos in a lot of shit. One of the princes of Dubai or Saudi Arabia or something, Bezos owns the Washington Post. And apparently he's friends with one of these princes over there. And the guy sent Bezos a link and Bezos clicked it. And the guy got into Bezos's phone and got like tried to basically like hack his shit, like steal a bunch of his stuff. And it was like a big issue. It was like, I think it was probably like 5 or 6 months ago. But these these tracking things. There's a guy, Robert Epstein, who's on Joe Rogan talking about it. Google car scandal. If you look that up, Google, when they drive around the neighborhood with that car trying to figure out, like, make maps and all that, what they did.
That's me last week. I seen it last week. Drove down the street past me.
So this is interesting. During the scandal, so you know how, like, we know they track our data when we're on the thing, right? So that Google car was sucking up Wi-Fi data from a bunch of people's homes. And it literally, imagine if your phone is like a trickle of information that gets sent to them. This was like taking a fucking vacuum and sucking it all out. So
vacuum suck.
They only got $25,000 fine, I think it was. But I just but here's my issue. I go, they just did something and realized they can do it at 10 times the speed. You think they're not going to try and find a way to do it again without like
$25,000, not 25 million.
No, it's 25,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I was
why?
I was like,
what is the point?
So
why would you fine Google $25,000?
So it's interesting. He also mentioned that there was a hacker that got into Google's database, and what they did was they shut down the internet virtually for every single person. And they did it, and the reason why they know it's a hacker is that the hacker has been named. And actually, they say that Google named this hacker and said he was a rogue person. He's still on their salary thing as well, too. He's listed as there's one of their software engineers still. So unless they didn't update their web service, they have to update their shit. Like, what the hell? But so he secretly works for them. But what he did was he shut down the internet for 45 minutes on a day of the week, one day out of the week, and 1 hour where there's specifically no transactions being done, no money transactions.
No financial transactions. Yep, I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, so he shut down the internet for that, and nobody could access the internet because most people have Google Chrome on their computers. So you go and click the internet, and you can't even type in another search engine because you're using Google Chrome. And most people don't have Windows, so they shut down the internet virtually for everyone. And everyone goes, "Oh, well, what's the point in that?" And it just goes, it shows you how connected Google is into fucking everything. Our technology, our apps, and all this, that makes it a big danger where you start realizing that, like, the reason why people encrypt their emails, I've dealt with since after hitting 1,000 and reaching out to like you know, I guess different guests and stuff, I've started landing in a weird dark COVID territory where I started leading down a bunch of like Wuhan lab territory, and all those guys use encrypted email things, and you can't delete the emails. They just stay there permanently. They're certified. They're all these types of things. And it makes it difficult because you start going, if I click this, is something going to activate into my computer? But it's just to make sure nobody's tracking their shit. Now you can pay for Google not selling your data. You can pay for your Gmail and they'll not sell your data and stuff. But since they give since they give you the internet free, that kind of means that you are the product and they're going to sell you. But if you want, so John Callis, who was on here, works for the Electronic Freedom Foundation. He mentioned if you want to pay for your internet, not only the bill, but the web services, Google and all that you use, then they won't sell your data, but you have to pay for it. But since we use it for free, that's how they get their views. That's how they get their clicks. That's how they get the money that makes them stuff by showing you advertisements and stuff. So it's like a weird sword in one hand and sword in the other. You kind of have to choose.
Have you ever done the Google search experiment?
I tried to search my show.
Oh no, you pick a topic because you go to Google and pick a topic like climate change and just put climate change in and click search and it comes up 4.3 billion search results, whatever. So you scroll down to the bottom and then you can click the arrow where you go to the end of the results, like the next 10 results. So you get the first 10 pages and then you go to the end and you click for the next 10 and then you get to the next 10 and you get to the next 10. Once you get to like the 50th page, it stops. You can't go any further. They're windowing the internet through Google search
slowly.
It's like you can't like just find that random web page that you would have found like 15 years ago online. You can't find Bob's blog from bumfuck Missouri about climate change. You'll never find it because Google is gatekeeping that. It'll show you NASA, it'll show you United Nations, it'll show you the European Union and whatever, and all these universities, and you get to about the 400th result, and then that's it. No more. Google's not going to show you anything other than what it wants to show you.
It's like that movie The Village, where all the people think that it's just that their town ends, there's nothing else, and then they realize no, there's airplanes, and they live in a fucking society that's like 300 years way back old.
Oh man, it's like Plato's cave allegory, that The Village.
We gotta wrap it, Phil. Where can people find you?
The Amish Inquisition. We're on YouTube. Find us on YouTube. If you like alternative history, revisionist history, near-death experiences, paranormal, aliens, all sorts of similar stuff to you. We have a lot of shared guests. Shared interests, don't we, Robbie? Into a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
And we do topical stuff as well. So we do like a half with a guest, and then the second half is news and silly sound effects and being potty mouths and grotesque.
You got to start. I always like it when I comment because I comment something crazy. Then I get to see you laugh, but you won't read my comment because you know.
I'm trying to get better at that. It's hard work because I'm running the desk and I have the notes and I'm queuing up videos and stuff, so I can't always often respond to comments in a timely manner. It's something I'm working on. It's something I'm working on to be more interactive in the second half.
I just enjoy your laugh, so I'm only doing it for you because I can see you laugh and you don't have to mention. I'm like, damn it, I got him on that one. And there's some you look and then you give me what you just gave me, where you just look down and you kind of give a sigh. You don't laugh. You just kind of go, God, you're like, Robbie, why? I'm like, yeah, that's what I like.
I think that makes you gay.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
Why you got to end my show like that? You got a better sound effect to end on?
What's wrong with iced tea?
No.
Fuck off.
That's even worse.
You want something positive?
Yes.
Throw me a bone here. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Okay, that's fair.
They're all negative.
You know what? You're a real wanker.
Yeah, you got some bad ones on there. Make some positivity in your show.
I know. All right. How about this?
Thank you for watching.
That's a good one. Sounded like the dude was out of breath, but okay. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank. Stay tuned for next episode.